All right. All right. Welcome to Parenting Pit Stops tonight. I'm Melissa Bernheimer, the Region 9 School Safety Lead. And tonight we're going to be talking about navigating the digital highway, keeping your family safe online. So, what comes to mind whenever you think about technology or cyberspace? Sometimes you get a very positive image, or sometimes that may bring about some negative images or negative feelings. But the online world is much like a road trip. And that's kind of the analogy that we're going to use for tonight. And that road trip is full of speed, opportunities, and hidden hazards. And so just like with our teens and our children, we don't hand our teens keys and say take off without preparing them, without getting behind the wheel and practicing with them, without logging all those hours, texting, teaching them not to text and drive. We don't, we put our young ones in car seats. We do all of those things to make sure that our kids are safe in the car and on that road trip. The same is true with technology. Technology can be a tool that can empower, but there's also some dangers if we don't teach our kids about that and we don't set some of those boundaries. So our agenda for tonight, we're going to have some pit stops along the way. The first one is about those road hazards and cyber threats. Our pit stop number two is about the rules of the road, teaching that online etiquette and setting those boundaries. Pit stop number three is all about keeping our passengers safe and family communication. Pit stop number four, we're going to be talking about refueling and recharging, where we're going to have that healthy technology balance. And then finally, we're going to cross the finish line with recapping and some Q&A. So, pit stop number one really is about watching for road hazards. So, just like potholes or black ice, we know that those road hazards can really appear suddenly. And so, as parents, we know sometimes with our kids, those just sometimes come up out of nowhere. So, those can be things like scams, clickbait, phishing. Sometimes there are things, like cyberbullying, sextortion, unwanted content, and so this can really be a lot of different potholes and road hazards. This is some really startling statistics from Crime Stoppers of Houston, and so let's take a look at some of these safety concerns. 46% of US teens 13 to 17 report experiencing cyberbullying, with older teen girls experiencing the highest rates of online harassment. This next part is I thought was really staggering. Over 90% of kids 8 to 16 have seen inappropriate content online. So that starts pretty young, and that's almost 100% of kids. That's a really large percentage. And 1 in 3 minors report engaging in online sexual interactions. When it comes to grooming, 10 to 14-year-olds is the average age of online victimization, and that is for males and females. And most children are enticed via Snapchat, Discord, and TikTok. So definitely be looking out for those apps if your children are on those. So we know that, kids obviously are on social media and smartphones a lot more often as time goes on. You can see from this graphic in 2014, 73% of teens reported having a smartphone. In 2021, it was 95%. Now in 2026, I'm sure it's pretty much 100% of teens that have a smartphone, which just leads to that rise in social media usage. Speaking of social media usage, this is self-reported from teens, and they report that 75% have at least one active social media profile. 54% of teens say that it would be hard to give up social media. 51% visit a social media site daily, and 35% say that they are on social media almost constantly. And then if we look at social media platforms over time, this shows back in 2014, 2015, the most popular apps with teens, this is ages 13 to 17. It showed most were on about 71% favored Facebook, with Instagram being the second most popular. Now, if you look, um, we have YouTube is definitely the most popular, followed by TikTok and then Snapchat and Instagram. Whereas you look at Facebook, who was the most popular, is way down, down to like 32%. So it just goes to show that, over time our apps are constantly changing, and what is popular was popular at one time is definitely not popular anymore. And even now, that was in 2023, and now by 2026, there are apps and different messaging platforms and things that weren't even around when this graph was made. So, some concerning features of social media. Obviously, there are users of all ages. When it comes to being in different gaming platforms and on different social media sites, you know, 10-year-olds can be in the same gaming platform with 30, 40-year-olds, and not necessarily know who they're talking to. Location sharing also is another concern. Interrelated apps. This is where, because of that algorithm, what you start looking up, what you start searching, your apps are going to talk to each other. This is where, sometimes you think, was my phone listening to me, or was it, could it read my mind? Because you'll look up one thing and then all of a sudden it starts to appear on all of your platforms. That is because your apps really do talk to each other because of that algorithm. And that may not seem concerning at first, but it is concerning if, your teen starts to look up content on eating disorders or some sort of mental health issues. That's going to start flooding their feed. Or if they start looking up inappropriate content, that the algorithm is going to start feeding that to them in all of their platforms. Um, Also, this idea of disappearing content. Some apps promote that, that content disappears, but it is very important to get across to your child that content really never disappears. There is always a way to retrieve that. And so just teaching your children that, it is very important to, think about, would your grandmother, would your teacher, would your would your parent, would they be be okay with what you're posting and what you're sending, because things can be retrieved and you have to think before you post and before you send things. We also know that cyberbullying is definitely one of the biggest bullying issues that is affecting our youth right now, and definitely affecting our schools right now as well. Um, and cyberbullying really is just any bullying that uses any sort of technology. And so it includes sending, posting, or sharing negative, harmful, false, or mean content about someone else. It also includes sharing personal or private information about someone else, causing embarrassment or humiliation. So this graph shows lifetime cyberbullying victimization rates from 2007 to 2023. And this comes from the Cyberbullying Research Center. And so you can see the dramatic rise from 2007 to 2023 in cyberbullying. And, a lot of this is due to the iPhone came out in 2009. And so smartphones before 2009 weren't really readily available to our teens. And then after that, it was a lot easier for cyberbullying to happen because they had their smartphones with them at all times. And so it was a lot easier to cyberbully really after 2009, as you can kind of see that in this graph, where after that, it continued to dramatically increase. This shows cyberbullying victimization rates by gender. And so the males are blue, females are red. Um, and you can see also what each gender, um, what type of what type of cyberbullying occurred by gender. And so you can see, a lot of times we think that females probably have been cyberbullied more, but really it's pretty close in females and males throughout each of the types of cyberbullying. And then this graph is self-reported from kids about who they told about their experience with cyberbullying. Most, if they did report, told parents, which is great. We want them to be telling someone. Some told a friend, 45.3% told a friend, 10.5% didn't tell anyone, 14.0% told a teacher. And I think the important thing to take away from this is that if students do inform parents or they inform teachers or friends, that those that they tell know what to do with that information. And so just knowing about the anonymous reporting systems in schools, if it is something that is affecting school, and knowing the cyberbullying laws, then that's the important part, to know that things are going to be acted on whenever those students do report. And then speaking of reporting with schools, David's Law is a law that came about a few years ago because of David Molak, who unfortunately did take his life because of cyberbullying. And so his mom really worked hard to get David's Law passed in Texas. And um, so it holds schools accountable for really investigating and doing a lot of things about cyberbullying, even if it is an off-campus offense. And here are some warning signs when it comes to cyberbullying, that your child may be a target of cyberbullying. So if they stop using their devices unexpectedly or appear nervous or jumpy when using their devices, if they start to appear uneasy about going to school or other events where their friends are, if they appear to be angry, depressed, or frustrated after texting or using social media or gaming, if they're oversleeping or not sleeping enough, they seem regularly depressed, they lose interest in things that matter to them. They become unusually secretive, especially when it comes to those online activities. Um, they avoid discussions about what they're doing online. Those might be signs that they're a target. Here are some signs that they may be cyberbullying others. They quickly switch out of apps or games or hide their screen if you're close by. They use their device all hours of the night. Um, they avoid discussions about what they're doing online. They seem to be using multiple accounts or an account that is not their own. They appear overly concerned with popularity or continued presence in a particular social circle or status. Um, they're starting to hang out with the wrong crowd, and they appear overly conceited in their technological skills or abilities. So these aren't necessarily, if you see one or two of these things, it doesn't necessarily mean cyberbullying, but it's definitely something, some warning signs that you want to dig a little deeper and to see what's going on, because they could definitely be signs of cyberbullying. So another issue, whenever it comes to technology and online, is definitely online enticement or sextortion. So online enticement involves an individual communicating with someone who is believed to be a child via the internet to commit a sexual offense or abduction. So this is when a child is being groomed for sexual exploitation. And it can be across various platforms. So it can be social media, messaging apps, gaming platforms. It happens to males, it happens to females. And just to give you some reference, in 2023, the NCMEC, National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, their cyber tip line received more than 186,800 reports of online enticement. So it is definitely a growing problem. And between 2021 and 2023, the number of online enticement reports increased by more than 300%. So, the more that kids are getting online, the more they're using social media and the more they're using gaming platforms, the more these predators are using, online and social media and gaming as a way to to groom youth and for sextortion. So we're going to look at this video from the FBI about sextortion and different grooming pitfalls.
Sextortion is when an adult coerces or entices a child to produce a sexually explicit image of themselves and send it to them over the internet. Once the offender gets a single image of a child, typically they'll use that image to coerce the child to produce more and more under threats of sending that image to friends at school, names on a contact list, or even the parents. Any child can be a victim of this crime, whether they're on the honor roll, whether they're a star athlete, boys or girls, but we have to encourage them to make smart decisions when they're online. Individuals who are conducting this kind of activity have multiple online profiles. They can pretend to be a 16-year-old boy or girl. They can pretend to be anyone, especially in the online gaming environments where they're offering cheat codes, they're offering access to coupons, or to get further advance in a game. So it's really important to have your guard up, to know that if someone who's contacting you saying that there's something, there's a good chance they might not be. They're looking to get access to you, they're looking to talk to you, and they're trying to encourage you to produce imagery so they can use that imagery to coerce you to produce more. Many of our victims tell us that they feel that there was no way out. They thought they were going to get in trouble. It's really important for victims to understand that they are not in trouble. This is an adult who is in trouble, who is coercing them to do this kind of activity. So it's important to reach out to a trusted adult or to law enforcement so we can end that cycle of victimization. Gone are the days when we told people to keep the family computer in the living room so that the parents could keep an eye on them. Now with kids with tablets and smartphones, many times they're having to make those really hard decisions when they're not under the watchful eye of their parent. So having those good conversations about what's appropriate behavior is more important now than ever.
So another issue with sextortion is sextortion and pornography. So even if a youth is not necessarily out there searching for pornography, unfortunately, it does come up on social media, and it's just unsolicited content that they're not even looking for sometimes. And so the average age of exposure to pornography is 12 years old. And so, like I said, a lot of times that is something that they're not even out there looking for. It's just being online and being on social media. It's something that they're exposed to. More than a third of teens do use social media to view pornography, and predators impersonating young girls are currently targeting boys ages 14 to 17 as the average age. And 85% of teens do not disclose instances of blackmail due to embarrassment. And among kids who have shared their own nude photographs, 43% admitted that they had shared them with someone they did not know in real life. And so this just goes back to, as a parent, making sure that everyone that your child is talking to online, everyone that they, are friends with on their social media accounts is someone that they do know in real life. These are some other types of concerning accounts that have been popping up lately, especially on Instagram and Snapchat and different platforms like that. The meme accounts, the tea accounts, and the fight accounts. A lot of these are based on certain schools. And so, like you can see here, like the tea accounts, you can see it will be like Lincoln High School tea, Franklin High School tea. And so, you can, based on whatever school your child goes to, you can search for their school and you could probably find a meme, a tea, or a fight page. And basically, what that means is if it's a meme page, it is a page where people will get on there and make memes about each other, basically, to make fun of each other or post embarrassing content about each other or about staff members. Kind of the same thing with the tea pages. It's the gossip pages where people are writing untrue gossip about each other, and people will join these pages and then, you know, write about each other. And then the fight pages are where Either people will write about fights that are going to happen or post the videos of fights that have happened. And so those are just things to make sure that when you're looking at what your kid is following or subscribed to, making sure that they're not on these pages. So looking at this Instagram post, there's a lot of things obviously going on here, but some of the things that you know people have a lot of questions about here when they're looking at some of these hashtags are why someone puts things like the hashtag Anna and the hashtag Mia. Like, why would you have a hashtag with someone's name? Or the Secret Society 123. Obviously, you see pictures of self-harm here. There's the cutting, and there's obviously depression and things like that going on here. But if you look here at this secret family, this secret society is actually when you put in those hashtags, um, we know that TikTok and Instagram and things, they do censor a lot of words. And this is a way that uh, people can get around certain words. And so instead of saying things like anorexia, you can put in hashtag Anna, and then all of the things surrounding anorexia will pop up. Instead of saying things like depression, you can do hashtag Deb, or if you were a male, hashtag Dan. And all of the posts, you can find all of the posts of other people talking about depression. If it was suicidal, then it would be hashtag Sue or hashtag Dallas. And so, just like I talked about with the algorithm, the more that you look at certain content, the more content like that is going to pop up. And so if your child is looking at things on self-harm or eating disorders or suicidality, then that is what is going to come up in their feed over and over. And so if looking at this secret society 123 or using these hashtags, more of that those things are going to come up in their feed. The same thing with this. Twitter actually has a whole eating disorder Twitter, and so you can use the hashtag EDTWT or EDTW, and it's an entire Twitter um, hashtag centered around people with eating disorders. And so it definitely glorifies eating disorders. We know our youth, that's where they get their Twitter and even more than Google, TikTok and things like that is where they're getting their health advice most of the time. And so this is where they're going to find all of that sort of advice. So here's one example of that. Here's some more examples. But you can see in all of those, it all has all of those hashtag examples where people can find all of that. Just like I talked about with the censorship of certain words, we know that things like obviously the suicidality and the self-harm and the eating disorders, things like that are going to be censored out, but also things, certain some drugs and alcohol, things like that will also be censored out. And so there is like TikTok language where um, our youth will use certain words or phrases or emojis to avoid having their words censored. And so just looking for making sure that we know what some of those things mean, as you can see in these examples. This is a list from gab.com, and they're a really great resource for knowing what some of those emojis mean. So if you see some of these emojis used in text in your kid's social media post or in text messages, you can always go to gab.com and find out what some of those emojis mean. Before this, I always knew that there were emojis like for sexually explicit things and even like some drug emojis, but I had no idea that there were even self-harm emojis, violence emojis, I didn't know that it got that extensive. And so this Gab was a really, really great resource just for learning what some of those meant. So definitely check that out on gab.com. And then the next pitfall is generative AI. And so AI is something that we're hearing a lot and a lot more about. We're all kind of starting to use it more and more in work and school. And, it is a great tool that's, helping us be more creative and innovative, but it does pose certain risks, such as exposure to harmful content, dependency and privacy issues. But it's really important that we teach our youth really how to be safe with it. Here is a video from Crime Stoppers of Houston that does talk about some of the dangers of AI that we are seeing right now.
Hey everyone, and welcome back to our AI video series. Today, we're tackling an important topic, the dangers of AI. AI is advancing quickly, becoming part of education, healthcare, finance, and nearly every industry. That opens exciting opportunities, but it also comes with real risks if AI is misunderstood, misused, or left unchecked. AI isn't bad, but it's not neutral either. Because it reflects its training data, it can magnify impacts, whether positive or negative, at a remarkable speed. AI thrives on learning from massive amounts of information, often collected without users realizing. Once data enters an AI system, it's stored, processed, and used to train or influence the model, shaping how it recognizes patterns and how it generates outputs. That data can then be applied to decision-making, automation, personalization, or even commercialization, raising important considerations around privacy, bias, and governance. Many AI models are black boxes, meaning we don't always know how decisions are made. Even developers can't always explain predictions. In medical, legal, or financial settings, that lack of transparency can have serious consequences. Another concern is manipulation. AI-driven algorithms prioritize engagement, not necessarily the truth, which provides the potential for echo chambers, filter bubbles, and misinformation. Add generative AI to the mix, and we face things like nearly unrecognizable fake photos, voices, videos, and even fake news that are all increasingly realistic and incredibly easy to create. These aren't unsolvable problems. With thoughtful regulation, education, and ethical design, AI can be managed responsibly. It all starts with awareness. The more we talk about these issues, the more pressure there is to build AI that truly serves people, instead of putting people and our community at risk. So whether you're building AI or simply living in a world shaped by it, your voice matters. Ask questions, stay informed, and use AI responsibly. If you're interested in inviting us to your school or place of work to further educate on the dangers of AI, please email us at scheduling@crime-stoppers.org, and let's stay informed together.
All right, so like she talked about in the video, that generative AI does pose a lot of risks, not only for adults, but especially for youth, because that generative AI is being used to create child sexual abuse material, which we used to call child pornography, but now we're calling CSAM, or child sexual abuse material, that depicts children engaged in sexually explicit conduct and nude images, using those Nudify apps or generative AI. It's also being used for online enticement, so individuals can use that generative AI to create fake accounts on social media and communicate with the child with the intent to commit a sexual offense. Then that leads to sextortion. So offenders can use generative AI in those fake photos to blackmail youth for additional content or coercion for sexual activity or obtain money. And then they're also using AI for just bullying and peer victimization. So there's lots of ways right now that that generative AI can pose a lot of risks. There's also character AI and chatbots that we're hearing a lot more about. These are just four that I featured here, but there's so many. Sesame AI, Character AI, Nami, Replica. Those are just a few, but they are different character AIs or chatbots where they actually talk with you, communicate with you. And the danger of this is that people really are using them, especially our youth, because they are so much more easily influenced to almost develop a relationship with and actually seek advice from instead of reputable, reputable therapists or reputable mental health experts. And, AI is predictive text. It's going to say what you want it to say. And so, it's not, um, we don't ever know what a computer is going to tell us. And so, there have been instances where youth have taken their own lives because of something AI has said, or, um, you know, all of a sudden become dependent on an AI chatbot. And so just making sure that, it's okay to use AI to, help become more creative or help proofread a paper or something like that, but not making sure that, your child isn't becoming dependent on it for things like social interaction. All right, so then our pit stop number two is knowing our rules of the road. Making sure that we're explaining those speed limits and age appropriate use when it comes to social media. Apps and sites do have age limits. There's not really a great way of enforcing those speed limits, but they do have them set. They do have them set up. It's our job as parents to make sure that it's being enforced, but making sure that our kids are not on sites that aren't appropriate for them. And so there's sites that Common Sense Media, Connect Safely, and Common Sense Education, and you can go to any of those. If there's something that your child wants to join or something that they want to download, look it up there, see what the rating is, see if that's appropriate for your child. And it will tell you all about that site. And before you let your child do that, and see if it's something that you want them to actually be on. Also, yielding to kindness. We know that, when you're behind a screen and when you're behind a keyboard, it's a lot easier to say things that you may not otherwise say. And so, teaching our kids that, there are consequences surrounding negative online use and what those consequences are. And so, letting them know that those consequences are going to follow them into the real world. And so, just be respectful online, be kind online, and because those things are going to follow you when you're offline as well. Discussing what's safe to share, and what kind of things need to stay private. Know that their accounts are set to private. Just like we teach stranger danger from a very young age in the real world, the same thing needs to happen in cyberspace. Um, and if you don't know someone in real life, then you don't need to be friends with them online. And then also you're your child's first teacher. And so what you're doing is what they're going to model and what they're going to copy. And so make sure that you're modeling good behavior as well online. So here's a few other things just to kind of keep in mind. No location sharing. Obviously, if you need location sharing as a parent, then obviously that's important. There's apps like Life 360 and Find My iPhone, things like that, that as a parent, then that's totally fine. But making sure that they're not sharing the location with everyone. Um, they're not befriending strangers. They're keeping that personal information private. And then a big one is not complaining online. Um, that just opens up the door to that grooming of predators. If they're talking about breakups and they're talking about problems at home and they're talking about being sad and depressed, that and people see that and their page is not private or there's people on there that they don't know, then that can really open the door to a groomer coming in and seeing their vulnerabilities. And so just letting your child know that if there's things that they need to vent about and things they need to talk about, that there's appropriate places to do that and there's appropriate ways to do that. But complaining online isn't one of the places to do that, and why it's not okay to do that. NetSmarts is another really great resource for parents. Um, it's the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children's online safety education program. Um, there's resources for parents, educators, students, and communities, but the parent section is really, really great if you need some more online safety education. So check that out for sure. One of the great things that it has on the NetSmarts page is there's this program called Take It Down. Um, we know that we never ever want to think about our children ever sharing explicit photos, but if that ever did happen, we Take It Down is a program where anyone under the age of, if they ever had a photo that was sent or shared out or posted before the age of 18, this is a totally free service from NCMEC, and the person that um, the photo is of has to contact NCMEC, and they will work with them to get that picture removed from the internet. And so, a lot of times our youth feel like once a photo is out there, it's out there forever, and or something is posted, it can never be taken down. And that's what has led to a lot of suicides or a lot of people not reporting things. And so this take it down site is just a way to know that there is hope to get it taken down and there is something that they can do. So, obviously we want to teach our children never, never to do that, and that is never a good idea. But if that does get leaked, if there is something that is shared, then this is a site that is a really great resource. I Had No Idea is also a great resource for parents and educators, and it has a lot of different just cybersecurity and cyber empowerment videos and resources for parents and educators. So check out that site as well. So pit stop number 3 is all about keeping your passengers safe. You want to stay in the same lane as your children and know where your child is driving digitally. So, to keep your passengers safe, it's really important to have that open communication because if something does happen, whether it's cyberbullying or um, harassment, or your child maybe did share a photo, I mean, anything that could happen, you want your child to feel safe to come and talk to you. So, you want to start those age appropriate conversations early so that your kids know what is appropriate and not appropriate online so that they can come and talk to you if and when those situations do arrive. Um, you want to know where they're driving online. So you want to know what apps, games, social media platforms, all of that they're on. You don't want to be surprised all of a sudden and find out that they're on a lot of things that you had no idea about. So monitor what they use and let them know, that you can and are going to be checking their devices. You may want to create a family, technology contract because every family is different. Every family has different things that they're comfortable with, and so, your contract might include, once you're this age, then you would be allowed to do this, or we only allow, you know, 10 hours a week of technology time, or I mean, whatever your family decides on is what could be in that contract. But, making a contract really helps set those boundaries. And then even sit beside them sometimes and co-view or co-play things and see what your kid is doing on their phone or see what they're doing on their computer. Um, and then that can also, it could help you see what a certain app is all about. Also, friend them on social media so you can see what they're posting. And don't always allow them to use devices in separate rooms alone, if at all possible. These are some teen dating apps. So definitely, if you see these on your teen's phone, these are never a good idea for really anyone under the age of 18 to be on. They're not necessarily marketed as teen dating apps, but that's what they are. They're There are different apps for people under the age of 18 to message and meet up with strangers. So things like Perp, Wink, Kick, Wiz, Meet Me. Definitely just there's groomers, there's just not it's not a great idea for the our youth to be on any of these apps. So definitely be on the lookout for some of these apps on your youth's phone. So if your youth does come to you and say that they have been the victim of some online harassment, um, first, obviously, you want to try to prevent that. So it's going to be definitely that ongoing, frequent conversations and teaching the rules of the road. You're going to want to monitor their online activity and set those limits. But then, if they do come to you and saying that something has happened, you want to preserve that evidence. So, taking screenshots, printing out pictures, I mean, whatever it takes to make sure that you have that evidence, because things can be deleted, things can disappear. So, make sure that you have evidence of that. Block that person and report those online profiles. That's going to be important as well. And then report it. So definitely, depending on the severity of what they said or what they're doing, report it to the local police and the school. And then in some cases may also need to be reported directly to the FBI, depending on the severity. All right, so let's talk a little bit about gaming. So, here are some of the, very popular games that our kids are on. Things like Sims, Minecraft, Roblox, Fortnite. And, we think of gaming as as mainly a male thing, but statistics show that it's about 52% male, 47% female when it comes to our teens. So it's about half and half. One of the big um, dangers, though, of gaming is that when our kids are in these gaming rooms, if they're, with their headphones on and on the internet is that we don't really know the age of the other gamers that they're in these rooms with. This is the age of gamers. You can see 83% are ages 5 to 12, so a lot of them are very young kids. 78% are the 13 to 28, but I mean, you have a lot of 29 to 44-year-olds, a lot of 45 to 60-year-olds, and a lot of 61 to 79-year-olds. So, I mean, a lot of adults in those rooms as well, mixed with our extremely young kids. And so you never know who you're going to be in one of those chat rooms with or gaming rooms with. Also, making sure that you know what your game ratings are. That's where those sites like Common Sense Media come into play, um, because some of those games like uh, Grand Theft Auto and things like that are like adults only, even though a lot of our youth play that, um, making sure that we're knowing the what our game rating is because some of them, even though, our teens are playing it, if it's adult only, it's suitable for adults 18 years and up. So, just getting on there and I really like this game rating because it not only does it give you what the rating is, but it gives you a description. So you can actually see like why it's rated that. So this one's really good. This is also some online chats to watch for. So these apps are and these sites would definitely not be safe for our kids. There's Chat Roulette, Monkey, and Discord. All of these are different chats where really the point is to just be randomly matched up with strangers to chat with. And so, if we're sitting there trying to drill into our kids' head of don't talk to people you don't know, don't have people online that aren't your friends in real life, this goes totally against that whole premise. So, definitely. Chat Roulette, Monkey, and Discord are ones to stay away from. Um, and it's not only chatting, but it's also video chatting. So it could be extremely dangerous for our youth. All right, and then pit stop number four is refueling and recharging. So we know that with when it comes to technology, sometimes it gets to be a lot, and sometimes we just need to have a break from technology. And so we have to teach that because our kids sometimes don't want to get off of technology. Gen Alpha was the generation that is ages 0 to 11, born 2023 to the present. And these statistics I thought were pretty startling. More than 36 million children who are age 0 to 11 um, are active internet users, exceeding teen internet users by 11.6 million. So those really, really young kids use the internet more than our older teens, which I thought was very startling. But I guess when you look at that gaming, that's probably why. And 65% of those Gen Alphas ages 8 to 10 spend up to 4 hours a day on social media. So even though we do have those age limits and age restrictions on social media, ages 8 to 10 are still on social media. Two-thirds of 6 to 8-year-olds search for Roblox videos on platforms at least weekly. And in 2024, 44% of those Gen Alphas reported using TikTok, outpacing their consumption of traditional television, which was 39%. So, I mean, they're not watching TV and cartoons anymore. I think it's now YouTube and TikTok is pretty much what the younger kids are now watching. So, whether it's adults or our teens or our really, really young kids, too much screen time equals engine burnout. So we've got to take a break at times. And so we've got to set those screen limits and time limits and encourage some non-tech family activities and personal activities. So we need to build in those pit stops, those device time or device-free bedtimes, dinners, all of those things. Put away phones at meals times, have conversations. At bedtimes, turn off our phones and our tablets. Um, especially at bedtime, that'll not only help our kids feel safe, but also improve sleep. Encourage outdoor times, hobbies, face-to-face conversations. I think it's been, great with the schools not having cell phones this year. Everything that we have heard has been so positive from all the educators saying, kids are actually having those face-to-face conversations again. They're actually playing outside. They're actually talking at lunch. And so I think before it was kind of that too much screen time and burnout because they were working on their computers in class and then they were on an iPad or something. And then in between time, they were on their personal devices. And so now they don't have those personal devices and they are having that face-to-face time again. And so I think they're getting back to a little bit more of this. So I think that's great. And also just remember that you're modeling digital wellness for them. And so making sure that you're taking time to, um, you know, set limits on your own social media and your own screen time. So when you're having conversations with people, making sure that you're putting your phone down and making sure that you're, not on your phone when you're eating or like, okay, let's have a family dinner now, and um, just setting those limits for everyone as well. There are screen time trackers. You can get the non-tech ones that are just the paper ones like this, but sometimes it helps everyone to see actually how much time they're spending on technology, because we think we don't spend that much time until we actually track it, and then it's a little staggering to say, "Wow, I can't believe I spent that much time on my phone or on a certain app or on TV or whatever." And so having them track and then maybe brainstorm ways that they can cut back. Or there are digital ones that you can do. And then the digital ones are great because it automatically does it for you on your phone. And parents can, they can set bedtimes, they can set reminders, they can set things that'll turn off internet, they can turn off Wi-Fi, things like that. So you can do, paper and pencil, old-timey way, or you can do digital screen time trackers. But either way, it's good to kind of see how much time you're actually spending on your devices. All right, and then that leads us to the finish line. Um, so we can have some Q&A if there are any, and we can look at a few resources. I talked about NECMEX NetSmart, that I had no idea cyber empowerment, that Take It Down is really great just to keep in mind. There's the Common Sense Media and Common Sense Education to look at all of those ratings for games, for apps, for different websites. The Cyberbullying Research Center is where I got all of the graphs and charts about cyberbullying, but they have a lot of other really great information about cyberbullying if you need any of those. David's Legacy is going to have all the information about David's Law. So if you need any information about David's Law when it comes to cyberbullying, that's go to David's Legacy for that. And then the other ones, there's a lot of different really great cyber cyber safety resources there. But if you have any other questions or you need anything else, this is my email. And like I said, my name is Melissa Bernheimer, and I am really glad that you guys joined us tonight. And I hope you got something out of this. And like I said, don't hesitate to stop in with any questions. Thank you.